Welcome to part 2 of this module on integrating the environmental evaluation into the conservation planning process. In this video, we will use the Environmental Evaluation Planning Tool, or EEPT, to document the Environmental Evaluation, or NRCS, CPA 52. I will demonstrate using the Environmental Evaluation Planning Tool to record the client's name, the client's objectives, the land unit information, and the applicable land uses on the farm. I will also document some information on the need for action on the CPA 52. And finally, I will save the document in the customer's electronic customer service toolkit folder. We open the electronic copy of the NRCS CPA 52. In this case, we're using the Environmental Evaluation Planning Tool. If the macros are not enabled, in the security warning at the top, click Enable Content. Once the macros are enabled, we click the Begin CPA 52 button. In the dialog box, we enter the client's name, John A. Smith, and the farm tract field information, tract 990, fields 1, 2, 3, and 4. We type in the client's objectives: increase productivity on cropland, improve farm for future generations. We select all the land uses on the farm, in this case, crop and farmstead. Then we click the Review Benchmark Conditions button. The resource concern questions for land uses that are not selected will be removed from the list. At this time, since we have not completed the field resource inventories, we cannot complete the benchmark resource concerns, so we click on the CPA 52 tab. Notice that the information that we entered is transferred to the CPA 52. We will also document the problems he mentioned in the need for action: decreased productivity on cropland. We may add to this information once resource inventories are completed. We will be adding to the environmental evaluations several times during the planning process. So now would be a good time to save the file in the customer's electronic folder and toolkit. So we click File, Save As, and navigate to My Customer Folders Toolkit. Find the customer. We will probably save it in his Determinations folder. Next, I will demonstrate using information that has been gathered in the office to document on the CPA 52 special environmental concern benchmarks for the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, prime farmland, coastal zone management, coral reefs, cultural resources, endangered and threatened species, floodplain management, wild and scenic rivers, and wetlands. Before we go to the field, we can document some of the special environmental concern benchmarks from the information that we have gathered so far. So we scroll down to the special environmental concerns section. If we place our cursor on the comment link in the Clean Air Act cell, reference information about the Clean Air Act is displayed. The planner may use this method for reviewing this information for all special environmental concerns. We know that there are no non-attainment areas in the vicinity of the planning area. We will document that in the benchmark column for the Clean Air Act. We should also list the source of information. So we click in the Cell Contents window on the formula bar and type in There are no non-attainment areas in the vicinity of the planning area. Source EPA website. If all of the information that was entered does not fit into the cell, we can resize the cell. But first we must scroll to the top and use the button to edit the benchmark and/or row height. Once we click the button and the spreadsheet is unlocked, we can scroll back down and enlarge the Clean Air Act row. Since we have completed the information for the Clean Air Act, we move to the benchmark column for the Clean Water Act. There is a stream that may be considered waters of the U.S., so we document that. We should also describe details about the stream. So we click in the Cell Contents window and add the narrative. There are waters of the U.S. present in the planning area. Perennial stream in fields 1 and 2. The benchmark for the Clean Water Act Section 404 is documented, but since there is a 303D listed stream nearby, we need to document that on the benchmark. We may need to enlarge the cell content windows so that we can see the entire statement. We add the statement, there are waters listed by the state as impaired under Section 303D of the Clean Water Act located in proximity to the planning area, and we add the stream name and reason, Upper Muddy Creek, due to sediment. Again, the cell should be resized so that all the narrative is visible. Now the benchmark for the Clean Water Act is documented and the entire narrative is visible. We may also document that coastal zone management areas and coral reefs are not present in the planning area. Once the benchmarks for the coastal zone management areas and coral reefs are documented, we move to cultural resources and document that cultural resources may be present on the benchmark. We enter the statement for the cultural resources. There may be cultural resources or historic properties in the planning area. See documentation in case file. Note that it is always a good idea to reference the source of other pertinent information. Once the cultural resource benchmark is completed, we scroll down to the endangered and threatened species. Since a federally threatened species or its habitat may be present, we document the name of the species, its status, and that it or its habitat may be present on the benchmark, and include our source of information. Once the ENT species benchmark is complete, we move to the floodplain management. For floodplain management, we document that parts of fields 1 and 2 lie in the 100-year floodplain. Then we scroll down to the prime farmland, where we document that prime farmland soils are present in all fields. Let's move down to the wetlands benchmark. For our wetland benchmark, we will document that there are no hydric soils according to Soil Data Viewer. However, the stream is a riverine wetland according to National Wetland Inventory maps. We also need to resize the cell so that all the narrative is visible. then move to the wild and scenic rivers. For the wild and scenic rivers benchmark, we will document that the farm lies in the watershed of a national wild and scenic river. We also may need to resize the cell so that the narrative is visible. At this point, we have documented most of the special environmental concerns that we have gathered data for presently. We will come back later in the planning process and document the remaining benchmarks for the special environmental concerns. At this time, it would be a good time to save the spreadsheet in the customer's folder. So we'll click on File, and at this time, we have entered benchmarks for several of the special environmental concerns. We will continue to record benchmark conditions as we gather more information from field visits. That concludes this video. In our next video, we will make a field visit to discover more information about our client and the resources on the land.